I arrived in Sierra Leone, took a plane straight from Ghana to Sierra Leone, and the airport in Sierra Leone is located way out on the end of a peninsula. So you can either take like an hour or 2 hour detour around this peninsula, or you can take transport across the water to get to the main Freetown, to get to the main heart of the city, Freetown. And so they have different options that you can take to get across the water. While I was there, they had a ferry, a giant hovercraft, a speedboat, a helicopter. I think those are all the ones that were available while I was there. But when I first arrived, we took a helicopter from the airport to meet up with our mission president on the other side of the water, and that was cool. It was like I think they said like old Russian military helicopter that they had acquired somehow. It was a lot of fun though. I came onto the mission with two other elders, one from Ghana and then one from the United States, and so it was just us three riding together in this helicopter. Then we arrived and met up with our mission president, and he brought us straight to the mission home. When we were at the mission home, we stayed there for I think one night before our companions that we were going to would be ready for us, and he assigned us to our companions, and we slept overnight at I think the assistant's apartment actually, and then the next day, they took us in the van off through Freetown to where we would be serving. One of the missionaries actually headed straight to Liberia first off, and because back when the mission was combined between Sierra Leone and Liberia, they had to do that. Some go to one place first, and the other American companion, or the other American missionary, and I started in Sierra Leone, and so it took us to our apartments. I remember right when I arrived at my apartment, boy, I got a taste of Africa because it was raining like crazy. Like you don't see rain like that around here very often, but it was raining like crazy, and so I had all my nice new missionary clothes, and as soon as I walked out of the van, soaking wet before I could even get to the door in my apartment. But yeah, and at that point, I was kind of in culture shock. I was like, "Holy smokes, what is going on? What is happening?" But I was super excited at the same time. So it was a really cool first little bit. I guess as I was adjusting and trying to get used to everyday life in Africa, I can say that it was really hard. Now I think a lot of missionaries experience that going onto their missions because it's something that I've never experienced before. When I first arrived in Africa, I remember thinking, there is nothing here that I've ever seen or ever heard before. Every smell I had never smelled, every sight I had never seen, every person I had never been acquainted with anyone like that before. It was, everything I saw was just backwards. It's like you're on the other side of the world. I mean, I guess you kind of are, but you're just put in a situation where nothing is familiar, and so it becomes hard when you can't revert back to your nice warm bed or your best friend or your parents or anything, because you can't even flip on the TV and see something that you've seen before. It was very different, and that was hard, because I had to get used to a completely different normal. I was shocked, but at that point I was really grateful for the one thing that was the same, and that was God. That is the one thing that I found was the same no matter where you go. You still have the moon, you still have the stars, and you still have God. That's pretty much it. Everything else is different. And so I prayed a lot during that first little bit in Sierra Leone. I mean, you pray a lot as a missionary, but I spent large amounts of time on my knees just asking for help, because I didn't know what to do. It was the first situation that I had been in where I literally had no clue. I mean, I'd heard this is what missionaries do, and I was slowly being taught how that works in Africa. And but I did get used to it, and it honestly didn't take as much time as I thought. Within a few weeks, I had kind of gotten down to what's normal in Sierra Leone and what kind of to expect. Luckily, I had a great trainer who taught me a lot of things. This is how we get by in Sierra Leone. And so I learned about the money, about the food, about the people, about what the culture is like, what the people tend to be like, and I learned a lot really quickly. My companion was great. He took me straight out on the field as soon as I arrived. I pretty much arrived, set my stuff down. He's like, "Oh, we got an appointment in 20 minutes." I'm like, "Oh, great!" I was all ready and headed out. And I can still remember my first teaching appointment. And the very first thing I remember noticing in my first teaching appointment was, okay, these guys are speaking English, but it's not the English that I'm used to. And so I kind of tried to mimic it. It's similar to Sierra Leone is a British colony, and so they have kind of a British influenced accent. It's kind of it's closer to British than it is American English. And so I remember trying to mimic that when I first got there and kind of failing. It was more of a cheesy British accent that I kind of ended up pulling off, but I learned quickly, and just put one foot forward and just kind of dove into things, and I've begun to really enjoy it really fast. I remember one of the first emails that I sent home to my mom to my parents. I told them, I've noticed being here that I do the exact same things every day. When you're at home, you kind of, one day you may have this class, or one day you may have this thing you're doing with your friends or whatnot. But on the mission, you're more or less doing the same thing every day, going out, preaching the gospel, going to lessons and things like that. But I told her, I said, if I'm going to be doing the same thing every day for 2 years, it's going to be preaching the gospel. That is the one thing that if I had to choose one thing to do every day, that would be it. And that sometimes remembering that later on in my mission that I had said that helped me, because it's true. That's the best thing to be doing every single day if it's going to be just one thing.